Hey everyone, it's Joanne Molinaro, the Korean Vegan, and last week I confessed to you that I am in love with potatoes, and therefore the potato love affair continues this week with these crunchy potato donuts. Let's get to it. All right, you guys made it clear that you enjoy storytime videos. So this is going to be a storytime, don't worry. Link to the full written recipe is in the description below. Today, we're going to talk about my most viral post of all time, the kimchi squat post. So last week I posted a short video about going over to my mom's house to make kimchi with her. In the video, I shared a photo of us doing a kimchi squat, a photo I also posted to my Twitter account. And I talked about how someone's rude comment to that photo made me really angry. And needless to say, it sparked a lot of conversation. And so I wanted to give a little bit more information and my thoughts on that topic. So just to give you a little bit of background, I asked my mom whether I could come over to her house to film a kimchi making video for everyone who pre-orders a copy of my book. If you don't know, I have a book coming out this October. You should pre-order it. I wanted to make it at her house because she has this beautiful patio, and I really wanted to recreate the scene from my childhood, which is all the women in our family come together to make kimchi. So kimchi making is very labor intensive, very time consuming, and in my opinion, a great opportunity to bond with your family members. In Korea, kimchi is usually made in the fall or winter when the cabbage is at its peak. And in the old days, and in many rural areas still, all the women in the village come together on kimchi making day, and they make their kimchi outdoors together because of the strong fishy smell, and yes, on the ground. Now, not actually like on the ground. There are huge bowls and earthen jars ensure that no food actually touches the ground, but kimchi is typically prepared on the ground precisely because of the communal way in which it's prepared. It's not meant to be a one-person job. Many hands and arms are reaching into the same bowl to salt and sauce the cabbage leaves, and therefore doing it around a small table that has a small enough radius for petite arms is just not really feasible or comfortable, hence the floor. And thus the term kimchi squat was born, referring to the way Korean women have mastered the art of squatting for extended periods of time while they prepare a lot of kimchi, sometimes for the whole village. Now, all my life, I have never seen kimchi prepared on a tabletop. It is always done on the ground for exactly the reason I described above. In fact, my mom does a lot of her cooking on the ground, usually with newspapers like all over the floor to protect the floor from getting dirty. Traditional Korean tables, as you may have seen, are often lower to the ground as well, with us sitting on small mats or cushions instead of chairs. Thus, I never thought anything of it, just like I never thought anything of the fact that we never wear shoes in the house. But when I described the scene I wanted to film for my video, my mom, my cousin, my aunt, and me all making kimchi on the ground like I'd always remembered it, my mom balked. She insisted, absolutely insisted that we make it on a table. She even talked about going to the store to buy a table that she would never use just for making this kimchi video. And that seemed like totally nuts to me. But she was so adamant about it. Eventually, two things happened. It rained on the day of my video, so we moved our filming indoors, and I convinced my mom that we could make the kimchi on the floor of her meticulously cleaned kitchen. So that's what we did. And then this Twitter comment. And my mom says to me, as if on cue, "See, I told you we should have made it on the table." My mother is 72 years old, weighs a total of 90 pounds. For much of my life, my small Asian mom has been larger than life. She's terrified and awed me with her strength and toughness. But in that moment, I wanted to put her in my pocket and make sure that no one ever made her feel badly again. Because to me and to my mom, it was clear that the implication in that tweet was that somehow my mom, the woman who had once threatened to disown me when I was only 8 years old because I wasn't mopping the floors to her satisfaction, and the same woman who stopped halfway through our YouTube video to vacuum and mop the kitchen floor again, was somehow dirty, unclean, unhygienic. There is no way someone is ever going to convince me that a tweet that basically says, your mom is dirty, is anything other than rude and hurtful. Side note, many people took issue with my use of the phrase, the white way is the right way, suggesting that I was assuming that the original commenter was white, certainly not, or that I was somehow being racist against all white people, certainly not. My mom is, after all, not white, but she also had to some degree internalized the fear that making food on the ground would be viewed as unclean or improper. However, it is well documented that the notion of eating on a table or cooking on a table and not on the floor is a predominantly American ideal. And in America, white people are still the overwhelming majority. So, what do we lose when we conform? I received a lot of comments in response to my video, mostly in support, and I am so grateful. But some comments like this. And this. People demanding that my mother and I either conform or, quote, go back home. The thing is, my mother has conformed a great deal already to American culture. She speaks nearly perfect English with no discernible accent. People often mistake me for her on the phone. She was director of the ER at the hospital she worked at, and in fact was often subjected to bullying by her Korean colleagues for being, quote, too white or speaking English, quote, too well. She refused to give in to sexism, a real problem in Korean culture, by declaring she'd be the son of the family when her parents had trouble conceiving a boy, and she made 4 times as much money as my father did during the length of her career, something my dad also had no problems with. She can eat with a fork and knife when necessary, reads English literature, and texts LOL and OMG to her American daughter. And when her American daughter asks her to make a kimchi making video, she'll suggest they do so on the tabletop instead of the floor to protect them both from accusations of being unclean. My mother used to be obsessed with making sure my handwriting was perfect, that I always said thank you, please, you're welcome, that I always offered whatever I was eating to my next door neighbor or friends after school. She taught me the importance of saying pardon me or excuse me or I'm sorry if I stepped so much as a toenail out of line. And when I say obsessed, I mean obsessed. My mom would punish us for the smallest infraction of American etiquette, and she did so because she understood implicitly that camouflage ensured survival. And I understand that, given everything she'd been through during her childhood, how many times she came close to dying from starvation, war, poverty. Her survival instinct was well honed. But I've grown up in abundance, never knowing hunger, never having to wonder where my next meal is going to come from. College was a foregone conclusion, thanks to my parents' hard work and sacrifice. The amount of privilege I have been bestowed by my parents is mind-boggling. And with that privilege comes a certain sense of responsibility to take back what my parents were all too willing to give up in order to be the perfect Americans. I think it's so amazing that English is not the official language of America. It speaks to what I think is the real beauty of America, a country built upon a respect for multiple cultures, an experiment designed to see whether a kaleidoscope of ethnicities, heritages, traditions, and languages could coexist to create a more perfect union. But I worry that people like my mother, who are so self-conscious about keeping the old ways because they are different from the American ways, as well as all the people who contribute to making her feel self-conscious about sharing her culture and the traditions of her heritage, not to mention the people who tell her that she absolutely needs to give them up, might discard them for expediency and the need to fit in. And with it goes all the beautiful stories, the memories, the communion that attends those traditions, however small. And all of a sudden, America is no longer as beautiful as it could have been. And kimchi doesn't taste as good as it once did. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for listening to this video. Thank you so much for all the love and support you have shown me over the past couple of weeks. It does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and remember to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future Korean vegan videos. Have a lovely day.